Good morning. This is start our lesson today. Grammar. How tall, far is that? Lesson 2, Unit 6, page 57 on the pupil's book. I want to tell you that the text is not important. The box here is not important too. Question 2, 3 are not important as well. What's important in this lesson is the topic itself. How tall, far, big is it? I'll discuss it now. So let's start. How far, how big, and how tall? Let's have a look at the first picture. What we see here is Rutana Amman Tower or Rutana Amman Hotel. And as you know, it is in Al Abdali. So the question to be raised here is, how tall is Rutana Amman Tower? How tall is it? So when we ask using how tall, I'm asking about this distance from the ground to the top. How tall is it? Let's see, how tall is it? It is 188 meters tall. So the first question for today is how tall? We're asking about the height. That means the distance from the ground to the top. Okay, let's learn a new word here. So if I ask you, how many stories are there in Rutana Amman? How many stories? What do you think? Storeys. And it has the same pronunciation as the word story, which means book, but different spelling. So how many stories are there in Rutana Amman? 1, 2, 3, 4. We're counting to reach the top. When we when we use the word story, that means we're talking about floors, or in another word, level. So how many levels, how many floors are there in Rutana Amman? We're having 50 stories, 50 floors. So if I ask you, how many floors or stories are there in our school? The answer is 3 stories, 3 floors. Okay, let's continue. Let's have a look at this picture. So it is from Google Map. And we're having here 2 points. First, Amman. And the second here is Zarqa. So what is the right question to be raised here? To ask about the distance from Amman to Zarqa. The question that should be raised here is, how far? How far is it from Amman to Zarqa? How far is it? The answer is 29 kilometers far. So again, if I want to ask about the distance between 2 points, we use the question how far. Again, how far is it from Amman to Zarqa? It is about 29 kilometers far. Let's have a look. So we're having here the second question, how far? And now we are moving to the third picture, third question. What do we see here? We see a cinema and we see a cinema screen. So what is the suitable question for this screen? What do you think? Can I ask how far is it from no? Or can I ask how tall is it? Yes, maybe. But the right question that can be raised here is how big is it? How big is it? So if I ask how big, using how big, I want, if I ask using how big, that means I want the width and the height. Again, if I ask using how big, that means I want the width and the height. In other words, I mean, I want the size. If I ask using how big, that means I want the size. Let's see the conclusion today. So again, the last question, sorry. How big is that cinema screen? It is 25 meters wide and 18 meters high. So again, the width and the height. The conclusion today is 1. We use how big to ask about, what do you think? We use how big to ask about size. We use how far to ask about distance. We use how tall to ask about height. So this is really very important. How big for size, how far distance, how tall height. So again, let's make a revision, quick revision. How tall is Rutan Amman? So we're asking about this space from the ground to the top. How tall is it? Or we're asking about the height. But if I ask using how far, that means I'm asking about the distance from one point to another. And if I ask using how big, that means I'm asking about the width and the height of something. Or in other word, I'm asking about the size. Thank you for listening.